My name is Josh Shein. I'm one of the partners at Trius Lending Partners. As you can see next to me, Steve Bond,
The one and only Steve Bond.
founding partner, managing partner. Dave Bond is listening in somewhere as well. He's out there. Hello, Dave. Okay, so our goal for today, we did this last year and we had a lot of success doing it. We spent some time, Steve and I, talking about the market, listening to Steve's thoughts on all the properties he sees, all the borrowers he speaks with, all the different scenarios he looks at, what he's seen the last year, and some projections and predictions for the new year. So that's our anticipation and hope again for today, is to be able to fill you in on some of our experiences over the past year, talk a bit about what's working, what's not working, and then obviously some predictions and projections for 2023. Let me kick things off, Steve, and just talk about you and I talking about the market. You know, we finished out 2022 here. In 3 more weeks, we're finishing it out. And obviously, a lot of the questions we get all the time is, how have things changed already? And not really necessarily an easy question to answer. What would you say for what has already changed and sort of looking back on the year that has been where we stand right now?
This has been probably one of the most challenging years we've seen in at least the last decade, in 10 years. Not a calendar decade, but for 10 years, we haven't seen the roller coaster ride that we have throughout valuations, lending criteria, stretching, not stretching, lenders, because of the world climate, the financial climate, the political climate. We've experienced ups and downs, mostly downs, for 10 months now. It really began seeing stuff in February. We're now in December. And I'm telling you that we had a period of time in the spring where we were seeing rate increases on a daily basis. That was on our long-term business. And we talk about two sides of our world. Our world is the long-term lending, which is based on DSCR, which is a unique product to begin with, which we happen to be fortunate enough to specialize from your background and my background. We come from that general marketplace, and haven't seen the insanity of change and the tightening up of stipulations and valuations and everything since actually 2007, when things started to contract there. So it's been phenomenally difficult to harness that. And when our clients were exposed to that, it was horribly embarrassing. We don't control that. It's done by our partner vendors, and they anticipated quickly and quicker than we did. And they reacted instantly with what the Fed chairman was doing. I don't think that's wrong, but it certainly didn't give us time to react and inform and notify our clients before they got hit with raises. Along with that came, after 2 years of escalating prices in solid real estate where it was bidding wars, now you see its valuations are tepid. They're not shrinking, but they're also not growing. And I think we're in for a tight ride going forward. But this year has been challenging, to say the least.
So looking at it now, the question everyone asks all the time, have values been impacted already in the Baltimore market? What's different? Obviously, on the lending side, the criteria for those long-term loans, we'll talk about hard money in a minute. The properties themselves, the values, what are you seeing and what's your feeling out there right now with that?
See, I deal with that on a daily basis. And I will say that they're very flat. If there's a decrease, it's minimal. 3, 4, 5% in valuations. What has changed is the exuberance in the market. There's been an increase in in availability. There's a little bit more properties available. The prices are still tight. They haven't gone to the place where it's good for fix and flippers.
Right.
It's still a hold market more than anything. The prices in the Baltimore and Washington area are flat. I don't think we're gonna, they're going to erode in any meaningful manner in the near future. Of course, I want to say to everybody, I have a crystal ball. It's just as foggy as yours. I don't have any more clarity than that, but I have feelings that I've had, fortunately, a lot of years of experience. So without overreacting, but being aware, that's what the game's going to be. Certain neighborhoods here are still gentrifying and stabilizing and increasing. We're still very, very bullish on what we do on the short-term side. We know that that is where the play is now, and there's opportunity. We are fortunate to be seeing our standard number of inquiries on a daily basis. I would say we're underwriting easily 5-6 loans a day on the short term private lending side. The private lending side is one of our really strengths, and our turnaround time remains the same. The good news is we're staffed. We haven't diminished our staffing any. Our ability to turn loans around, which is part of our DNA, is not changed whatsoever. We will remain prompt and complementary to our clients and help them make good decisions on the business.
When you talk about the market, what and being bullish on this market, being bullish on Baltimore, what causes you to be positive on Baltimore on a long-term horizon when you look at it?
We have had steady growth, economic growth. We were doing okay before the pandemic. We came out of the pandemic pretty good. I see a tremendous amount of conversions going on from hotels to apartments. That's telling me and showing me that people are moving to Baltimore. They're moving and they're coming into the downtown area because the growth of the residential units is not necessarily in the county. We're seeing in the counties, we're seeing more and more houses being used as rental units because of the cost of the mortgages and the lack of decrease in pricing. So you're having a high price and your cost is getting higher and higher. So it's making purchases more challenging.
Right. There is talk of that threshold where that sort of those two lines cross as to whether it makes more sense to buy versus makes more sense to rent. Obviously, it's challenging to buy with the increased rate environment. Rates have recently, for owner-occupied homes, dropped a bit. On the investor side, they have not dropped. They do track on different type tracks. So the long-term 30-year fixed traditional homeowner loan tracks closer to the 10-year bond. The investor loans that we do on the long-term side, they're tracked in a whole different world. There's no one place to really look at it. It's really appetite on Wall Street. Those haven't seen the same drop overall. Talking about flips versus hold, it's something we've seen the evolution of for a long time. How many? I mean, are we seeing? Do you see many flips? Are there some people still doing it? If so, how are they making that work still? I mean, a lot of people are holds right now. That's the market right now.
That's true. Long-term rentals are stronger than flips. And one of the things I gotta recognize to everybody out there, we talk about the validity and the advantage of being an owner. And that's a fallacy that is, it's not necessarily, it's a philosophy that is based in 3 generations ago. My parents told me and made it clear that home ownership was a path to wealth. Well, yes, it is, and no, it's not. You don't need to rush to be a homeowner. Sometimes you're better off in your youth accumulating the asset base that you need for your long-term investments and your retirements, as well as owning a property. And you don't have to own right away. I think that, like I said, that is a concept and a philosophy that has been perpetuated where it may not be as actual as it is today as it was 2-3 generations ago. I do see this with regard to our flip business. The flippers are working on less profit. They want to be flippers. They don't want to be holders. So that means they're willing and need to work on a less ROI basis and keep their people working, keep the volume going, even if they're only making 28, 32, 34% cash on cash returns. Well, still a great return against whatever other investment you may have. So if you're doing a flip and you're making 28 to 30% return and you're doing that in 5 months, so if you do that twice, 2.5 times a year, you're talking at 28 times 2.5. So your return on investment, your absolute income producing flips are there. You got to do more of them. You got to work harder to make the same.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to work harder to make the same. And that's because the inventory is tight. More than anything, that's the reason.
So even with the market changing and with rates going up and inflation, et cetera, the tightness of the market hasn't changed.
Not at all. Not that much.
Not that much.
Now, if you're asking what's going to happen going forward, that remains to be seen. The biggest issue is, what does the homeowner, because it's not builders, what does the homeowner want to do with his property? Does he want to stay longer? Does he want to trade up? Does he want to move to the south because he can work remotely? There's so many things going on to it. But right now, I do believe that people are leery about making decisions. And that is called to cause the housing market to be as less robust than it was, because there was options if you moved. Now, not as much. And I think because of politics, the world economics, all of the things that are going on that are grabbing the news and the headlines, make people say, I don't need to make a decision right now.
Right,
If
just
they
wait.
did, we'd have more houses on the market.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a holding pattern, and we see that, and I think the data fleshes that out too, that a lot of people are just on the sidelines waiting. I'm not going to buy a house. I'll stay where I am. And it's always a challenge. If you sell your house, how much you're getting, and then where else do you go? How much is that going to cost price wise? And the interest rate being higher, it's going to cost me more to buy it, cost more of my monthly payment. The prices haven't dropped for that end user home, which is both good and bad, to cause people to make those moves to free up some inventory. So it is this cycle. And to your point, the shock effect, which was really bad, I would say maybe right when all the interest rates came up, there was more of a shock
March
effect.
and April.
Right. There's still a bit of it now with just sort of like maybe people waiting on the sidelines. I was talking with an investor today, and the mindset was, I've had a pretty good year, some ups and downs, a really good number of years, phenomenal number of years when this investor was looking collectively on it and saying, you know what? It's December, it's the end of the year, it's the holidays. Instead of sort of end of year hustle and let me keep going, let me take a breather, maybe count my money, maybe do my math, maybe assess my inventory, maybe work on my business plan for the new year, get organized, get structured, plan out 2023, and take a little breather right now. And so we are seeing a little bit of that out there with some people doing that. Not everyone. A lot of people are still running gung-ho and pedal to the metal, but there are some people that are sort of slowing down and waiting to see how things flesh out. Where do rates go? Fed rates don't tie directly to all these mortgage rates. It certainly has an impact on it for sure. Keep in mind, a lot of the rates out there right now have baked in those Fed increases. The Fed increase coming, I think, 1 week from today. It's been on the books for a while. It would be incredible news if they did less. It would be bad news if they did more. Most people see it as a half-point increase. That's really baked into the stock market. For the most part, it's baked into interest rates as well. with regards to 10-year, with regards to long-term rate. So,
Realize that we're playing catch up right now.
right.
We've put ourselves in this position with all the aggressiveness in real estate and in business world in general. That right now we're playing catch up for
sure.
all the damage that was done. And it goes back to, the oil issue is not from the Ukraine. That's a part of it about the war in Ukraine. It has a lot to do with the fact that we're not pumping our own oil anymore.
Right.
We were self-sufficient in oil. Now we're not. I mean, that's just one of the many things that are going on that people look and are claiming or blaming external factors. We got internal factors that are doing this as well.
Sure, a lot of things impacting it. Back to flipping versus renting on the investor side. The people who you're seeing meeting and visiting properties on a day-to-day basis, are they doing both, or are they sort of staying in one lane or the other? What do you see?
The interesting thing is flippers don't want to get out of flipping. However, the marketplace, and when I go to see properties and I meet with the buyers, and I say, what do you plan on doing? I say, well, I'm going to flip this house. It says, okay, so I agree, you can do that, but shouldn't the house tell you what you're going to do with it? What are you going to spend to do a fix and flip rehab as opposed to a fix and hold rehab? Now, if the numbers in the market is tight to begin with, and you need to spend more, obviously, on a fix and a flip than you do on a fix and hold, what are the numbers doing to you to make your decision? If you want to be stuck in one lane, then you're going to be subject to your rigidness. Where if you're open-minded, and real estate is really for the open-minded, you can't have it, and that's pretty much for every business, but you can't have only a fixed attitude about what you're going to be doing. You have to be flexible and let the market help you determine how you're going to make money. Do you make it all now, or do you do it because the market's tight over a longer period of time? So going into a project, let the property dictate your direction. Now, that's hard for some people who don't want to be landlords.
Right.
They got this issue about landlords, and I understand that it can be challenging. It does bring on extra responsibility that is not necessarily pleasant all the time. There's two responses to that. One, the old school, suck it up, deal with it.
Right.
It's a long-term play, and you're going to make your money over a long period of time because you've chosen real estate to be your vehicle for wealth accumulation. If you don't want to do that and you want quick appreciation, you're going to be in another industry. I don't know what that one is anymore, especially when the stock market was great till it's not. So if you're looking for return on investment, is it immediate or is it long-term? And one of the things my partner Josh has told me year over year over year, real estate is a long-term game. It isn't here for the immediate gratification. It's a long-term game. If you get lucky, sometimes you're in the right place at the right time and you knock it out of the park. But all these people who have generational wealth have not done it in an hour, a week, a year, a decade.
For sure. With the rental side, marathon, not a sprint. That's what I always say. On the rental side, so the flippers don't want to be landlords, which we see, but they end up having to sometimes. I mean, it's just a reality that sometimes hits them in the face, I guess, right? I mean,
some choose to do it, and some choose, well, I'll just go find something else to do.
Yeah, right.
Or, as I said earlier, do more to make up for it, and be willing to take a little less on each one.
Right.
I mean, we all have our decisions to make about how we're going to get through everything.
Right.
And these are the options that are out there. You ask what they do. Some acquiesce, and some don't.
Yeah. Now, on the renter side, are you seeing more of Section 8 or regular non-Section 8 deals? What any guesstimate on the mix there, or benefits, advantages, disadvantages?
I would say that the marketplace has stayed the same.
Yeah.
The government subsidized housing culture has remained the same. It's not just Section 8. There are
Yeah.
several other programs
Correct.
that allow for people to be subsidized and that. So I don't think that it's changed very much at all. What determines it is which you'd rather have. You
Right.
give up a little margin by going to Section 8, but you also gain a little bit more protection, you hope.
Right.
And if we are depending on our governments, then it's up to you and your opinion of what our governments are.
Right. The story I always tell
That's
people
a
is,
nice way
yeah,
to say it.
that's a good way to say it. The story I always tell is we have a client who, when COVID hit, obviously everyone's freaking out, and this gentleman is all Section 8. So he did not lose a night of sleep at all.
Hundreds of properties.
And hundreds of properties knowing Section 8. So, and I still run into people all the time who are like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. There are experts within our local market, within our industry. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to make some introductions to you. There are a number of people who have the expertise and will take care of that for you and do that for you to get it FHA approved, Section 8 approved, whatever it's called, and make sure that it is eligible to be rented and will get rented in a fairly quick turn time, which is really key. Working with someone who knows what they're doing. The people who know what they're doing have been through the ups and downs, right? They've worked through it for many properties, sometimes many years of the ins and outs and ups and downs of it. Some of them have some connections to be able to know the people who can help get an inspection a little faster, understand, I don't know how many shortcuts there actually are, but simply the ability to know how to comply properly with things. And that's really the key as well with it.
Like any business, if you're a specialist in that business, and if you're a work with Section 8 a lot, and you're a property manager and bring them many things, they know your name, they see you in there, and you're a part of the team.
Yeah.
So you get a little bit of preferential treatment only because of the familiarity and being that expert in that world.
Right.
So they are going to do that. If you Section 8, you're going to give up a possibility of $150 to $200 a month in free market rent as opposed to Section 8 rent. Section 8 rent is capped, and they have shortcomings in certain times. So for example, at the moment, they're very short on 1-1s. Now, why there's a need for 1-1s, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't live in that world.
Right.
But I do know that I have clients that come to us and says, listen, I can rent every 1-1 I got as fast as I get it, where my 3-2s may not be quite as quick. So and I get the premium on the one, but that changes. So those experts in there is a big help if you use them, and if you're a subsidized landlord, and that's your game, you have to be on it and know all the different programs and not be a slave to only one of them.
And we hear different experiences with the people who have seasoned history with it. Some say the Section 8's better, those tenants stay longer. I don't know if the turnover, so I don't have to factor in that turnover expenses on your P&L when you're doing your math, you're doing your projections, you're doing your numbers. Some of them are staying there for years and years and years, and it's a beautiful thing. So it goes both ways. Some say the place gets trashed, it's not worth it. So there's always that balance and that give and take in these situations.
I think one of the things we're not taking into account that needs to be taken into account, are you a Class A builder, that property? Are you a Class B, or are you a Class C property? Right. And again, those are going to determine help determine which way you go. If you're in a Class C property, you're much probably better advised to do subsidized rental. If you're in a Class A property, and that could be that doesn't have to be a big condominium kind of building. It's a quality place that you can get. You get
the upside for the rent would be much higher.
100%. 100%.
Sure.
So again, and if you give a good product, be careful who your tenants are. Make sure if you're vetting them, you vet them correctly, or if you've got a property manager, they're vetting correctly for the property that you're getting. And it's very important. And nobody really talks about that. You think it's Section 8, you think it's in some schlubby neighborhood. Doesn't necessarily need to be.
No, not at all. Right. And I think the other thing, and I see these on the Facebook groups, the different meetings and meetups, is networking, meeting these people to find these properties, networking, meeting these people to find the different managers. the challenge people have is self-manage, hire a management company. I don't want to spend the money in the management company. Well, if you're doing Section 8, if they can help with the Section 8 process, there's value there as well. And that is a big conversation that comes up a lot. Can I manage my own stuff? At what point do I need to get a manager? When's it worth it or not?
Well, I always, when I go into a property with a client, and I say, the first thing you have to do, if you're gonna have this as a rental, you have to make sure that the head, the heart, the bowels are all functioning perfectly. They look at me like I'm crazy. I said, what does that mean? It says the roof, the HVAC, electric, and plumbing. You got to get that taken care of. Do not skimp on that. Because that will cause you to have restless nights. Hey, they got a leak over here. Hey, it's leaking over here. The plumbing isn't it. So if you get that taken care of, that's where you spend your money, because that'll keep you from having sleepless nights.
And we do run into a lot of newbies who are trying to cut those corners, trying to say, oh, I'm just going to do some lipstick. I'll just update this and just make it look nice. And they do get burned on that. They're trying to be frugal on the front end and looking at the dollars and cents. I can save the money now, I'll deal with it down the road, I'll kick the can down the road. Our most successful clients that we see time and again are the ones that put all the money in up front. Was it more expensive? Absolutely. It was a bigger investment for them up front. When they're coming to us, talking to Steve, talking to the rest of the team, they were putting more money in. They were asking for larger rehab monies. Going, geez, you're putting a lot into this, but they're doing it right. I'm gutting it. I'm taking it down to the studs, or maybe not taking it down to the studs, but dealing with the important aspects, which is the plumbing, the HVAC, the roof, the kitchen, really doing it the right way. And we hear over and over again, the right way, quicker tenant, hopefully better, but quicker Section 8 placement, quicker overall. And again, that goes for Section 8 as for any tenant,
and those tenants, if they've got a nice place that's working, they don't want to leave.
Yeah. And so thinking about the value of the bigger investment up front, less maintenance down the road, and a longer term tenant overall is going to pay you back much better.
Where you save is in the cabinets and the accoutrements and all the trim that goes into, and that's where the difference is between a flip and a hold. You're not going to do molding, you're not going to do chair rail, you're not going to do granite, you're not going to do all the gingerbread that people want in the home they buy, as opposed to the home that they rent, as long as it's clean and neat and functioning. They're going to put their own pictures on the wall. They're going to put their own flowers on the table, whatever that is.
Right, for sure. Looking at the properties you're seeing out there, the areas you're seeing out there, I guess, the famous question, we get this all the time, areas you like, areas you don't like. I did, don't discriminate on areas and be open-minded to them. Don't try to pick specific areas. So I do want to put that out there as a caveat, that we don't discriminate against an area. There aren't ones that we won't do. There aren't ones that we only do. Not at all. We're open-minded to them all. Having said that, there are certainly trends that we see. And so I'd be lying to you if I didn't say we do see certain trends. And with Steve out on the street as much as he is, along with the rest of the team, what are some of those trends you are seeing right now?
The good news is I've watched 21206 in the last 3 years go up 45%. And it's probably tapped out now, but that means there's still opportunity over there. That was a good market, still is. The surprising market is 1.5 and 1.6 right now. There's big money being thrown into Pimlico and the surrounding areas there with subsidized housing, as well as what they're doing or not doing with the racetrack, depending on which month you're looking at. Because they say they're putting the money in and they say they're not. But it's caused enough attention to attract more people. And the good news is some of the crime that was in 1.5 is now starting to move away from it. And it's less issue in 1.5 than there has been. So the prices I'm seeing down Reisterstown Road and Park Heights Avenue down towards Park Circle and even up towards over by Sinai Hospital, it's shocking to me because I grew up in that neighborhood. Other neighborhood that's doing real well is Forest Park. Forest
Mhm.
Park's also trending very, very nicely. And that's also less and less crime. They've just built a brand new supermarket over there and they've cleaned up that area pretty well. Gwynn Oak also is the same. One place that I'm not a fan of, and I'm always suspect of, not to say we haven't done something there,
Right.
but it's an outlier, and that's Brooklyn and Curtis Bay. We do some,
Yeah,
but we're very, very selective
yeah.
because it's remained very, very, very low in escalation and in growth.
Yeah, and I would say the conservative and careful side, and again, that ties to what I was saying. We don't discriminate against anything. We'll take areas that we may not normally be fans of, but if it's a good deal, it's a good property, and the borrower makes sense, we'll do the deal. But having said that, in this market, as we're heading into, and we'll get into projections in a few minutes and outlook and that kind of thing. But as we're heading into more uncertain times, we're certainly taking a closer look at all the properties, spending more time analyzing the property. We're still eyes on people. That's the Trius lending way, is going in person, seeing you in person, seeing the property in person, inspecting it, putting our hands on it, making sure we like it. What do we see? What does the basement look like, et cetera? You've heard us talk about that a lot. And so that allows us to really get it down to the nitty gritty, watch the details, pay attention to it. But we are looking at comps closer. I've mentioned in a number of videos and different posts, the comps from February aren't really helping us right now because that was the high of the market. So, we have to make adjustments. We're looking at it now saying, how old is that comp? Assuming it's a good like comp, similar bed, similar bath, similar square footage, similar style and look, which a lot of people overlook, and proximity, we run into all the time, especially in the city. People love in the proximity game to say, well, I have a great comp. It's 18 blocks away. If you know Baltimore City, 18 blocks away on a comp is not a comp. Okay. That is an entirely different world. And it's same as 15 blocks, the same as 12 blocks, the same as 10 blocks, the same as 9 blocks. We are going in a pretty tight area, and that's the best way to handle the city. And that's from years of experience with Steve and with everything we've done. And that's always held us well, and our clients as well, taking that conservative approach. But in looking at it now, we're spending extra time really digging into those numbers and really looking at saying, okay, if the market sees a little bit of more of an adjustment downward from the flattening that you talked about a few minutes ago. So what does it go down? How much does it go down? And are we still safe? And is our investor, our client still safe? I don't want to sound selfish or we're looking out for ourselves. You've heard on a lot of the Zooms we've done, a lot of the posts we put out there, it's mutual, right? So we're looking out for our clients and we're looking out for Trius lending partners. We're both in it together and looking out for our success together. So if we have a client who gets into a property and it's not enough equity, not enough upside, the ARV is unrealistic, the rehab is way more than they think, that's when we're always giving that honest assessment. So we are doing, I think, more homework and a closer look right now based on the marketplace, really being careful and conservative. And that's really the key. And has been the key for years and years to stay safe.
Always has. The reality is that it was hard to make a mistake in 2021 and part of 22. Okay, it was hard to make a mistake. You had to be quite foolish because the market
So
helped you. It
right.
really helped you. So all the success
And 20 and 19 and 18 and 17 did.
Yeah. Like I said, it's been
Right,
a great run-up.
right.
And
Yeah, all those years.
I don't see any issues that are going to repeat from the financial meltdown
Right.
because all the circumstances were different. But we've come through a tremendous escalation. And if you look at it logically, and you start at the year 2000, which is pretty much when I started. Okay, so from 2000 to 2008, that's 8 years, you had a really significant run-up. You also had ups and downs in the interest market for buying, home owning.
Right.
It started out at 6%. I mean, we've gone, and then we had the market crash. And it took 2 years, 3 years for it to settle and get the foreclosures out and all that uniqueness.
Right.
Then from 12 to 22, another 10-year run up.
For sure.
So you got to pay attention. So I'm looking at all of this to say It ain't the end of the world. We're going through a hiccup right now,
Correct.
a rate hiccup
Right.
and a catch up, as I said before, on some of the mistakes that were made during that run up. Thank God it wasn't the same sort of mistakes as no doc loans and no
Right,
money
right.
down and runaway silliness,
Right.
stupidity
From back then, right.
from
On the
them.
lending side,
And
right.
and the lenders, they have, and even then, I would never, ever do a loan without skin in the game by my investing partners. I don't want to be the only guy on the hook. I don't know how any bank, any lender, anybody could ever allow that to happen, no matter what.
Yeah.
Why are you the only one with skin in the game
Right.
when you have nothing to gain?
For sure.
So
Yeah.
why do that? So that's nothing but the wrong kind of greed.
Right.
Okay, so that's not going to happen again, and certainly not going to happen here.
So based on that brings me into that question. What's the outlook? What, and then I have another good question after that. What, we get this question, people ask this a lot. What's going to happen in 23? I know none of us do have the real crystal ball, but if you're a bit of a betting man, what would you say? I mean, what, 5%, 10%, 30% down? What happens in 23?
I would
There's
say,
so many factors, but just based on
many to
a
do
guess.
that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say it this way: it's business as usual, just not as robust as it has been.
Right.
So
Right.
I know that there are people in the real estate world, which is
Right.
what we're in, that want to buy houses.
Right.
Whether they do them as a flip or they do them as a hold, the property will tell them what to do. There's properties available. We're blessed to be in a marketplace that has opportunity. And when I say that, I say the Mid-Atlantic is a solid place to be.
Right.
Whether you're Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, Richmond, these are solid socioeconomic areas. They don't have huge fluctuations like New York does, that goes way up, way down, gets crazy, in California and Florida, and even Texas. They get wide spreads.
For sure.
So we don't have that. We've got a stable, conservative environment based on one of the many things is the government and the employment with the government. And people are commuting from Baltimore, from northern Richmond into Washington.
Yeah.
We went to a convention in Richmond and I've met so many people that worked in Washington. I said, how in the world why do you do that? Says, well, they pay well and I can afford to live here. Okay.
Right.
They've been doing that in New York, from Long Island and New Jersey and all that crap for years and years.
Yeah.
So it's finally hitting here. But the good thing is that Washington has a hunger for employment and they employ a lot of people, and the surrounding areas is the benefit because it's hard to afford to live in DC.
But here's the contradiction that people ask about. Buy right, buy low, get the right price. But the market is still not down yet, high, flat, whatever we want to call it. I want to get into the market. I want to get into real estate. I'm in for the long term. I can't get the kind of deal. Those deals aren't out there yet. I can't get a 30% discount.
As you said, and we say, real estate, you can't time the market, whether it's the real estate market or the stock market. You're not going to time it. So any smart investor, long-term investor in the market, stock market, let's start there. That's our competition. They say, okay, I'm going to put in $100 a week, $100 a month, $1,000 a month, 10, whatever your number is. If you do it week after week after week after week, month after month after month, the market goes up, the market goes down. Ultimately, you never lose long term. Same thing's true right now. It doesn't matter. I bought one of my first houses at 17% interest. This was to live in. This was not an investment. But I remember that, well, I wanted a house and I could afford what it was. I wasn't rich. I didn't have a loan, but that was what the market was.
Right.
I bought a house for $50,000. Okay.
A few weeks ago.
1984.
Okay.
$50,000. I sold that house in '87 for $75,000.
Great return.
Great return.
Yeah.
And they paid 12% or
Right,
10%.
rates were down.
Rates were down,
Yeah.
but I made money in that. So you did it. You did what you needed to do. I don't know. It's hard. So don't stop investing in real estate. If you're pick this as your occupation, as your wealth generator,
Full-time or part-time, but either way, part of how you want to build your
100%.
your net worth. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Says I told my grandson when he got his first job, pay yourself first.
Right.
So every paycheck
Right. Goes.
he invests
Yeah.
in our fund.
Right. Correct. Right. In the Trius fund. So here's the question that leads right into that. You talked about years ago, if you could go back when time travel comes up, I don't know when it'll be. If you could go
I'll
back,
get younger.
yeah, exactly that. Time travel or get younger. If you could go back, whether it's 20 years ago when you started Trius Lending Partners, or maybe 10 or 20 years before that in your prior career and doing a lot of different things, making money, growing your wealth, what would you have done things differently on the real estate front?
I wish I had learned. I had a 30-year career in the footwear industry.
Right.
And it was an excellent time. I made nice money and had a great success, and life was good. I loved it. I really did. If I had known about what real estate was, I'd have got into. I wish I'd gotten into it sooner.
Bought properties.
I bought property.
Holds or flips?
Again,
Let the market decide. Okay, well,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard for me to go
But get
back
in the
and look
game
at
one way or the other.
Get in the game. For sure. It has
How
it is
early
a
would you-
better it is a better road to significant wealth than any job or other industry.
Right. So how early would you have started?
Right after I came out of the womb.
Now that's some long-term appreciation.
I will
But,
tell you,
I mean,
what,
are you
if
saying-
you've been in at 80 years, okay, you did real good.
That's true. Are you saying as soon as you had some money, at whatever age that might have been, I don't know, I don't care.
You had guys
putting it
on
in.
here. You've had guys on
Yeah,
here.
very young.
that's, started
Yes.
at
So-
22 years old.
Okay.
They're now 27
Yeah,
years old,
and they
and they have knocked it out of the park.
Great.
So I learned from them.
So let me flip the question around. I assume the answer, but I want to ask it anyway. If you were starting now and you were 25 years old, get into it, balls to the wall, buy the real estate, get going.
It is
Long term.
It is the most secure way if you do it intelligently, conservatively, and consistently. 3 C's: conservatively, consistently, and
I don't know
what was the other one?
So
if you do that, it's hard. There's bumps and grinds, there's ups and downs, but there's hard to lose.
well,
Hard to lose.
I use this quote a lot that I hear from people over and over again, and I pass it along to everyone. I wish I bought more and started earlier. That's it. Not I wish I did it when the market was up and the market was down. Not when interest rates were up or interest rates are down. I wish I bought more and started earlier. That's just a blanket statement. I say the same thing. I just turned 50 years old. I wish I did it when I got out of college, started buying real estate. Why didn't I?
It's one of
So-
the few industries that
right,
you can say
right.
that about.
And so let me dig a little deeper. We're good on time. We have one question we're going to get to in a minute. If you were starting right now, knowing everything you know, with a little bit of detail, what would you do? You got a job, you make some money, you have some savings. Tomorrow, it's time to go out and get into the real estate game. What would you do?
But I tell you,
Yourself.
I'll tell you what I told people 20 years ago when I got into the private lending world. And people were getting in it. I said, flip 2, buy 1. Flip 2, buy 1. If you're starting out, you don't have money, you got to generate some cash. So you have to take what little that you got and flip it and add to it. Then you do another flip, and then you take that money and put it into a rental property. And then you take that income over there and then start doing a couple more flips until you can decide and then let the properties do it. But it's a good formula for
Right.
acquiring wealth first in order to acquire the properties. So you can do it for fairly low amounts of money to do a flip so that you can get that, depending how good you are, how fortunate you are in the marketplace, to get 20, 30, 28, 32, 35, 40% ROI on a property where people were getting 70 and 80%.
Well,
Okay, so you
yeah,
have to be realistic about the time.
go up and down. the
That's
cycle,
exactly right.
And what about shifting a little bit? We see clients who have the desire to go from a few single families to a larger amount of portfolio, and then want to jump into multi and commercial. What's your thought on that, making that move for people?
Well, first of all, one of the things we got to address is real estate is a very, very, very wide word. When you define it, is what do you mean by real estate? Are you in the warehouse business? Are you in the shopping center business? Are you in the storage business? Are you in office buildings, apartment buildings?
Retail.
I mean, across warehousing is hot right now. Why? Because shipping and everything is Amazon's on fire, Is that forever and ever? I don't know. I think the most thing you can say is it is an ever-changing field. And if you have a passion for one of those over the other, then the passion should drive you. And that should be the key. Be aware whether you're hold or flip. Again, that's a different kind of world. That's on small individual units. Okay. If you're in the long-term gain and you're a developer, I mean, you want to talk about Howard Brown, he's going to do it in a completely different way than Steve Bond's going to do it, because he's a developer. So it is a real estate developer who does residential housing, commercial shopping centers, look at Owings Mills. He built Owings Mills. So who's right and who's wrong? Real estate, all those categories, is right. You pick the one. I think the most important thing is, where's your heart? Where's your ambition, and what is it? So you make that out. All the guys that, by the way, and I watch almost everyone, but all those guys, they had a passion for real estate. They was driven by that, and they've moved in from one to another where their comfort zone and their experience took them.
I think passion is such a big word, and we don't even necessarily use it enough. Passion will drive it all. With the passion, you're learning. With the passion, you're feeding yourself on all that information to help you do a better job in real estate and ultimately be more successful in real estate. We're coming down to the end of our hour here. Let me get a few quick questions. Okay. What do you see in terms of buying foreclosures and short sales due to the ending of the pandemic benefits running out?
I would say anytime you can, you should. We had a wonderful world in 10, 11, and 12 on buying foreclosures. We did phenomenal. And that's because there were so many of them, and we had that run up in price. I don't think we're going to have nearly as many as we did then, because the market shift is not on the same basis, as I said earlier. But if you have the opportunity to buy those, I would suck them up like crazy. Yeah,
good opportunity. What I'll add to that, the caveat I'll add to that, which we see a lot, is see the property, visit the property to whatever extent you can. But we run into the people that come to us, they're buying them off the internet. Certainly there are situations, and this would be a whole different Zoom just on this, but there's certainly situations where you're not allowed access. There are those situations where you can't get in it, and we have to base it on worst case scenario for repairs and then look at the ARV. But if you got to at least see the outside, look in the windows, do something. I mean, to not see it at all, it's just crazy.
I can't tell you how upset I get when I'm walked with somebody who bought through an auction, and the auction would not allow them to go into the property. And first time I go to see them, I see the property, and I say, "Have you seen this property?" He says, "No, this is the first time seeing it too." I said, "Before we go in, I want to make sure I got this right. You committed to spend $150,000 that you may or may not have on something you haven't seen."
Right.
I don't want to tell you you're not very bright, but how can anybody do that?
You don't know what you're getting into. You don't know what it looks
How
like.
can
Right.
you do
Could be
that?
a burned out shell inside. You have no idea. Right.
You don't even know what it's going to cost to
Right.
get it to habitation
At all.
at all, and you already put out that money
Right.
because the market was so hot, you
Yeah.
were afraid you're going
Yeah.
to lose a deal.
Fear of missing out.
Oh my
That's the
God.
danger. Let's hit one more question here. What type of investment funds do you offer to invest in? So Trius Lending Partners, the way we fund our short-term private lending side is with a mortgage investment fund. So we collect money from investors. We pay a very healthy return with dividend reinvestments. It can get up to 12, 14+%. It's got major tax benefits as well. We'd love to talk to anyone offline about that. Feel free to reach out to us. And we're happy to help you on that. We're always looking for investors, and it's been an incredibly successful investment. And I'll add this one selling point on it is that since 2003, when Steve started Trius Lending Partners, no investor that has ever put money in Trius Lending Partners has lost their investment ever.
Nor have we missed a payment.
Nor have we missed a payment
ever.
So it's really an impressive track record and pretty uncommon out there, and certainly not something the stock market can say, even with its ups and downs. So feel free to ask any more questions as we're winding down here. We'll wrap up in just a moment here. So good to go for 2023. Stay the course, keep on plugging along, be a little more conservative and careful in looking at the values. I guess the only other thing I would ask is issues that we're seeing a lot of recently. Are there any common mistakes or issues at looking at the property side, at the closing side, at the rehab side, or at the selling side? Are you running into or seeing any persistent types of mistakes or frustrations that we're seeing and saying, are you kidding me? Did you really do that? Anything that comes to mind? Budget on rehabs?
Yeah, the biggest issue that I see repeatedly is people not asking for advice, counsel, and help. Okay, we're the kind of company that supports people making successes for themselves. It's always been, not that we're altruistic completely, we'd like to make money as well, but we certainly want to have customers, borrowers, clients, friends for a long time. That's the secret to a successful business, and it's a secret to helping people and everybody doing well together. So that's really easy. But if you work with us and you find yourself stuck somewhere and you don't ask us, then that's catastrophic, can be catastrophic and silly. We try to let everybody know we're here to help them as well as ourselves. That's a two-way street. As you said, we have clients that are with us years and years and years and keep coming back to us because we back them up.
Right.
So the one consistent foolishness that I see is not asking for help when you don't have the answer yourself.
Lack of communication is a challenge, and the need for communication, for good communication, consistent communication in the entire process, from your agent, your lending partners, title company, closing, post-closing, the rehab, working with your contractor, then your agent when you're listing in, or whoever's working with you to rent it. Communication is key on all sides, to have great communication to be able to keep everyone in the loop, keep everyone up to date on good news, on bad news, on how things are coming along to ensure success is crucial.
Anybody who's in the support world as we are, there's no foolish question. The only thing that gets burdensome is they don't learn from the questions and the answers that you get. If you ask the same question 28 times, you're getting it to be a little painful. Right. But there's no silly question. Right. If you don't have the answer, it's not silly.
Right. And we're happy to help on those, and we always do. On that note, check us. Let me see. Well, hold on. I got some more questions, maybe. Okay. Yeah, I got a few more questions. Okay. Sudeep, thank you very much. Enjoyed our podcast webinar here. Another one. Most people are aware of the 75% ARV rehab cost formula. Is that 75 ARV part of the equation good for buy and hold, or should that be lower? If lower, what percentage would you use? So you're saying on a hold, how would you look at what that LTV to ARV should be on a hold? I'll do a quick answer, and Steve may have something more. I'm going to base it really on the exit strategy for the loan. So the exit strategy for the loan is really all that matters for that. We can speculate, we can talk about what you should or would want. At the end of the day, what's your refinancing ability, right? That's the whole game. So you want to be able to look, and ideally the market had some 80% product. There's still 75 left. If I was to do it, I'd probably prefer to be at a 70% to play it safe. That gives me a little extra padding that helps offset what might be happening in the market as the market has shifted where things have gone. We've talked about interest rates going up. Some of the LTVs, the loan to values on some of the financing options for the long-term exit on a hold have dropped a bit, meaning you can't borrow as much. So if they're at 75 now, and if there's another little blip or adjustment in the market and they drop to 70 LTV, I would want to base it on that just to be a little safer. I don't see it going lower than that. I think that's sort of the floor for the market because 30% equity is a pretty good number based off of that appraised value that you're going to get after the repairs are done. So I think you're pretty safe on that. That's how I would recommend it. Anything to add?
I agree 100%. However, I'll add another caveat. Just like everything, you have to qualify for your loan, the exit strategy loan, so your loan to value works. All this is assuming, depending on what's happening with the lenders and how tight they are and not tight, because I think we're going to see a continuing tightness in the credit market.
Right.
That's something we haven't said,
Right.
but I do believe that the credit market is going to get a little tighter.
Right.
If the credit market gets a little tighter, in order for you to get your 70 loan to value on your refinance, you're going to need a 720 or 740 credit score. You're going to need to have a 1.2 to a 1.3 cash flow on your property. So you still have other things to look at when you're saying, if I'm a perfect borrower, if I have a perfect scenario, that's when you're going to get that 75 or 70 loan to value. And that's what it is. But if you're not, and you got a 660 credit score, you may wind up with a 60 or 65 LTV.
For sure.
So it's not such an easy answer. I don't want to, Josh's 100% right in that that's where they are now, but it's certainly
more to it.
More to it.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. It's a great point, great comment. On that note, comment, like, subscribe, check us out on all the social media channels. We're everywhere. Feel free to reach out anytime. Our generic email address is info@triuslending.com, but on all the social media platforms, you can find all of our contact information. Myself, Steve, the rest of the team, Dave, and everyone else, we're all happy to help answer any questions. Happy to be a resource for you on anything you need at any time. Questions are free. Calls are free. Happy to talk to anyone about anything. That's what we're here for. And we'll hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.
Free but the money.
Exactly. Thank you. Bye-bye.